A San County Almanac by Aldo Leopold, Part 2, The Quality of Landscape, Chapter 6, Manitoba, Clandeboye. Education, I fear, is learning to see one thing by going blind to another. One thing most of us have gone blind to is the quality of marshes. I'm reminded of this when, as a special favor, I take a visitor to Clandeboye, only to find that to him it is merely lonelier to look upon and stickier to navigate than other boggy places. This is strange, for any pelican, duck-hawk, godwit, or western grebe is aware that Clandeboye is a marsh apart. Why else do they seek it out in preference to other marshes? Why else do they resent my intrusion within its precincts, not as mere trespass, but as some kind of cosmic impropriety? I think the secret is this. Clandeboye is a marsh apart, not only in space but in time. Only the uncritical consumers of hand-me-down history suppose that 1941 arrived simultaneously in all marshes. The birds know better. Let a squadron of southbound pelicans but feel a lift of prairie breeze over Clandeboye, and they sense at once that here is a landing in the geological past, a refuge from that most relentless of aggressors, the future. With queer antediluvian grunts, they set wing, descending in majestic spirals to the welcoming waters of a bygone age. Other refugees are already there, each accepting in his own fashion his respite from the march of time. Foster's turn, like troops of happy children, scream over the mud flats as if the first cold melt from the retreating ice sheet were shivering the spines of their minnowing prey. A file of sandhill cranes bugles defiance of whatever it is that cranes distrust and fear. A flotilla of swans rides the bay in quiet dignity, bemoaning the evanescence of swanly things. From the tip of a storm-racked cottonwood, where the marsh discharges into the big lake, a peregrine stoops playfully at passing fowl. He is gorged with duck meat, but it amuses him to terrorize the squealing teals. This, too, was his after-dinner sport in the days when Lake Agassiz covered the prairies. It is easy to classify the attitudes of these wildlings, for each wears his heart on his sleeve. But there is one refugee in Clandeboye whose mind I cannot read, for he tolerates no truck with human intruders. Let other birds spill easy confidence to upstarts in overalls, but not the western grebe. Stalk carefully as I will to the bordering reeds, all I get to see is a flash of silver as he sinks, soundless, into the bay. And then, from behind the reedy curtain of the far shore, he tinkles a little bell, warning all his kind of something. Of what? I've never been able to guess, for there is some barrier between this bird and all mankind. One of my guests dismissed the grebe by checking off his name in the bird list and jotting down a syllabic paraphrase of the tinkling bell, crick, crick, or some such inanity. The man failed to sense that here was something more than a bird call, that here was a secret message, calling not for redemption in counterfeit syllables, but for translation and understanding. Alas, I was and still am as helpless to translate it or to understand it as he. As the spring advances, the bell grows persistent. At dawn and at dusk, it tinkles from every open water. I infer that the young grebes are now launched in their watery career and are receiving parental instruction in the grebe philosophy. But to see this schoolroom scene, that is not so easy. One day, I buried myself prone in the muck of a muskrat house. While my clothes absorbed local color, my eyes absorbed the lure of the marsh. A hen redhead cruised by with her convoy of ducklings, pink-billed fluffs of greenish-golden down. A Virginia rail nearly brushed my nose. The shadow of a pelican sailed over a pool in which a yellowleg alighted with warbling whistle. It occurred to me that whereas I write a poem by dint of mighty cerebration, the yellowleg walks a better one just by lifting his foot. A mink slithered up the shore behind me, nose in air, trailing. Marsh wrens made trip after trip to a knot in the bulrushes, whence came the clamor of nestlings. I was starting to doze in the sun when there emerged from the open pool a wild red eye, glaring from the head of a bird. Finding all quiet, the silver body emerged, big as a goose, with the lines of a slim torpedo. Before I was aware of when and whence, a second grebe was there, and on her broad back rode two pearly silver young, neatly enclosed in a coral of humped-up wings. All rounded a bend before I recovered my breath. And now I heard the bell, clear and derisive, behind the curtain of the reeds. A sense of history should be the most precious gift of science and of the arts, but I suspect that the grebe, who has neither, knows more history than we do. His dim, primordial brain knows nothing of who won the Battle of Hastings, but it seems to sense who won the Battle of Time. If the race of man were as old as the race of grebes, we might better grasp the import of his call. Think what traditions, prides, disdains, and wisdoms even a few self-conscious generations bring to us. What pride of continuity, then, impels this bird, who was a grebe eons before there was a man? But that as it may, the call of the grebe is, by some peculiar authority, the sound that dominates and unifies the marshland chorus. Perhaps by some immemorial authority, he wields the baton for the whole biota. Who beats the measure for the lakeshore rollers as they build reef after reef, for marsh after marsh, as age after age the waters recede to lower levels? Who holds sago and the bulrush to the task of sucking sun and air, lest in winter the muskrat starve, and the canes engulf the marsh in lifeless jungle? Who counsels patience to brooding ducks by day, and incites bloodthirst in marauding minks by night? Who exhorts precision for the heron's spear, and speed for the falcon's fist? We assume, because all these creatures perform their diverse tasks without admonition audible to us, that they receive none, that their skills are inborn and their industry automatic, that weariness is unknown to the wild. Perhaps weariness is unknown only to grebes. Perhaps it is the grebe who reminds them that if all are to survive, each must ceaselessly feed and fight, breed and die. The marshlands that once sprawled over the prairie from the Illinois to the Athabasca are shrinking northward. Man cannot live by marsh alone. Therefore, he must need live marshless. Progress cannot abide that farmland and marshland, wild and tame, exist in mutual toleration and harmony. So, with dredge and dike, tile and torch, we sucked the corn belt dry, and now the wheat belt. Blue Lake becomes green bog becomes caked mud becomes a wheat field. Someday, my marsh, diked and pumped, will lie forgotten under the wheat, just as today and yesterday will lie forgotten under the years, before the last mud minnow makes his last wiggle in the last pool. The terns will scream goodbye to Clandeboye. The swans will circle skyward in snowy dignity, and the cranes will blow their trumpets in farewell.